And if I told you once, I ain't gonna tell you twice. Salute all my real ones. Yeah, look, bro, we got why cheap cars are disappearing. Inflation, the whole semiconductor BS. So basically, they're not able to build new cars. Y'all heard about this? GM said that if you buy a new car from them and it's supposed to have heated seats, that it's not gonna have the heated seats because they don't got the chips for it, but they'll still sell you the car. And then eventually down the line, when they do have chips, you could come back and get the chip installed so you could get your heated seat. Yo, for all that, I'm not buying the car, bro. Like, if heated seats is that important to you, not buying the car, bro. Like, sell me, I want a complete car and I don't want to have to come back to get a chip installed because I don't got the chips. But basically, why cheap cars are disappearing is easy. So, I mean, I take that as used cars. Inflation, the pandemic, a lot of people aren't working. A lot of factories had to shut down. They don't got the semiconductors. So it starts off with new cars. New cars, they don't have the chips to make them, and the prices are going through the roof, which means that used cars are where people are trying to buy it. But so many people started flooding into the used car market that raised the prices. Not only that, but people that had their cars leased saw that if they wanted to flip their lease or trade in their lease for a new car, it's wildly expensive. So they decided, well, forget that. I'm just going to stick with what I have now. So a bunch of cars that would be sold at CPO prices or would end up going into the used car market aren't actually making it to the used car market because people are holding on to their leases longer. I think I just answered the whole video before it even started. But let's find out. But before we do that, like button, subscribe. Yo, I got the DMX voice. Like button, subscribe. You know what I mean? Because you know, that's my mans in them. You heard? I don't think he said you heard. Like button, subscribe button, notification bell, press those. Let's go.
There are about 40 different car brands in the United States. There are American brands and imports, trucks, SUVs, sedans, sports cars, and of course, lots of crossovers. There are pricey cars and perhaps more affordable cars, but one kind of car that appears to be disappearing is the cheap car. Auto industry analysts say sales of very inexpensive cars.
Oh, like they mean cheap, like a Volkswagen Jetta or something like that. Oh, like, I mean, it's easy. Like, who the hell, if you going, most people finance their cars, and it's like those little cheap compact cars and SUVs, they come with cloth seats. They still got cassette players in them and CD players in them. Like, if you've ever been in an economy car, you're just like, bro, this ain't worth it. Like, they have wildly cheap engines, cheap plastics everywhere. Like, things are falling apart. Oh, hell, nobody wants to ride in that. And because most people finance, it's like, yo, if I'm gonna finance something, I might as well finance something with some type of quality to it or luxury.
These days, meaning any new car with a starting price somewhere below $20,000 are declining. In fact, they have fallen off a cliff. Historically,
I mean, but there's also inflation. Like,
about 1/5 of new vehicle sales would have transacted below $20,000. But in the last few years, those have completely dried up. New cars are becoming more expensive, and it's unlikely those cheap cars will ever be back. Buyers who love them may be left out in the cold. The nascent years of automotive manufacturing were dominated by what we would today think of as coach builders, basically shops that hand-assemble vehicles one at a time. This was the way horse-drawn carriages, or coaches, were built, and automotive manufacturing adopted both the process and the name. As such, early cars were expensive. Industrialists such as Ransom Olds and Henry Ford changed all that by introducing assembly lines and interchangeable parts, dramatically reducing the price of a car. Ford's Model T was one of those early vehicles. In Europe, there was a movement to develop inexpensive cars for the masses, which many proponents dubbed people's cars.
Yo, it's funny because you see that car right there, that just, I can't say it reminds me, but I mean, yeah, it reminds me of like the 40s, dudes wearing suits like the long suits, paws with the big ass shoulders looking like football pads, and then they'd have the Tommy gun, and then they'd spray people. I've seen too many Al Capone movies. I'm sorry.
In fact, German automaker Volkswagen's brand name translates to people's car. Making and selling practical, affordable, and dependable cars has long been a key goal of automakers. Affordability was a key ingredient in legendary and extremely strong-selling cars, such as the original Volkswagen Beetle, the Ford Mustang, and countless others. Japanese automakers penetrated the U.S. market in the latter half of the 20th century in part by selling affordable and dependable vehicles. Typically, the most affordable cars are the smaller ones that would fit into the so-called compact and subcompact categories. Some mid-size vehicles can also start at prices below $20,000. In 2020, the subcompact segment in the U.S. included cars such as the Honda Fit, Hyundai Accent, Kia Rio, and Nissan Versa. Vehicles in this segment are typically priced below $20,000, a cutoff point for what auto industry analysts consider the cheapest cars available. The 2020 Nissan Versa, for example, starts at a price of around $15,000. Cheap cars have a problem that might seem rather obvious. They don't make a lot of money. Automakers, like any company, have certain fixed costs built into their business models. They have to build factories, keep the lights on, pay for product development, and pay workers and executives. Many of these basic costs exist whether the product they are selling is cheap or expensive. So an automaker basically has two choices.
Yo, that's a wild graphic. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna keep stopping the video, but like seeing that little compact car next to this Ferrari Lamborghini Huracan looking thing, like crazy. Obviously, the Huracan looks so much better. We just gonna call it a Huracan.
Sell a little of something pricey or a lot of something cheap. The problem for automakers is that relying on volume to make money can be hard. Margins can be razor thin, and any challenges or missteps can eat into already slim profits. Automakers can try to protect against this in part by spreading costs across a range of vehicles. A pricey car might share some parts with a cheaper one. Obvious examples of this are the Ford Mustang, Dodge Challenger, and Chevrolet Camaro. The cheapest versions of these start in the mid-$20,000 range, but the most expensive versions, which share a lot of the same basic parts, can cost more than $90,000. But at least in the US, the overall market appears to be moving away from the cheapest price points. So who buys cheap new cars? Why do they matter? Well, the short answer is young people, mostly. Younger buyers are usually not loaded. They can be people as young as teenagers, but also folks in their 20s and even 30s.
Most of the consumers that are in the sub-20 space tend to be younger consumers and first-time buyers. And so it's a very critical demographic for getting new customers into the industry in general, but into your brand in particular. So as consumers get their first jobs, establish a career, get a family, and they're looking for a new car, they're in that $20,000 space.
In spite of the fact that cheap cars are less profitable, automakers are still keen to lure younger buyers who likely have many car buying years ahead of them. Selling cheap cars creates the possibility of building brand loyalty in a consumer over a lifetime. Even luxury makers such as BMW and Mercedes have moved into the lower end of the market in recent years in the hope of boosting volumes and getting younger buyers in their vehicles.
So there's a lot of risk here in that first-time buyers now are having to wait many more years to get a new car. And so now you're kind of allowing the risk there that these first-time consumers will rely more on Uber, will live urbanly and not even need a car. And so we as an industry could be making a lot of long-term actions here, a lot of long-term implications from moving the first-time buyers either back or into something more expensive.
Despite the risks of selling cheap cars, they historically made up a considerable share of the new car market. This appeared to be the case even in recent years. As the U.S. economy recovered from the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009, cheap cars made up a good-sized slice of the auto market.
Prior to 2018, the segment was about 20% of the industry pretty consistently. And so on the retail side, we're talking in excess of about 2 million sales annually in the space just below $20,000.
But something strange happened in 2018. Sales of sub-$20,000 cars seemed to suddenly plummet, and a closer look at sales numbers shows that cheaper cars were disappearing faster and earlier than it seemed. For some of those years following the recession, two of the cars that made up a considerable portion of sales transacting below $20,000 were the Toyota Camry and the Honda Accord. Neither the Camry nor the Accord are compact or subcompact cars. They are slightly larger and are usually grouped in the mid-sized car category. They typically sell
I won't lie, like, it's funny, because it's, because I'm in New York, you see a lot of Honda Accords, and Camrys, obviously, and they get used for Ubers, cabs, people's personal vehicles. It's like, yo, every time I see an Accord, I'm like, damn, like, that car to me is fire. It's for the new Accord, fire, but it's like, because, like, you know, it's gonna sound stupid, but because it's used as a cab, and a lot of people feel the same way that I do, because it's used as a cab, you kind of don't want to get it, because you might be driving down the street and people are trying to flag you down because they think you're a cab too, like, and I know between me and my friends, like, we all want to try to get cars that, you know, not a lot of people have. Like, the less people that have the car, the better. You know, and obviously somebody's gonna have your car, but we always try to figure out, like, yo, what's a affordable car that I could get that not a lot of people have? There is none. You know what I'm saying?
Or above $20,000. But both were selling at very low prices for several years due to incentives dealers were offering on them.
But oh wait, and I swear to God, I'm not gonna keep stopping it. But I mean, it's a reaction video. Y'all came to react to me. Y'all came to watch me react to the video. It's only inevitable that the reason why the prices of these cars is going up is also because they keep putting more and more technology into them. Like, the power ratings really haven't changed, because they all stay around 180, 190 horsepower, and, you know, same amount of torque. But it's the features that's raising the price up.
It is worth noting that the Toyota Camry and Honda Accord are two of the most popular cars in America, and among the most popular of all time. In 2017, both manufacturers were scheduled to release new versions of these sedans, and when they did, the prices of each car shot up past the $20,000 mark, causing sales numbers in the sub-$20,000 category to cut in half. So the reality is that the cheapest tier of cars had already been shrinking for years in the wake of the recession, even though it looked like sales were a steady fifth of the total new car market. But why were sales of these cars shrinking? Why were dealers offering steep incentives on the strong-selling and practically iconic Camry and Accord nameplates? The all-too familiar answer is, in 3 letters, SUV. Sport utility vehicles have taken over the auto market in the United States, as well as a growing share of the global market. SUVs went from 29.9% of sales in 2009 to 51.5% in 2019. They are found in practically every segment, size, and configuration. Consumers appear to love them, but so do automakers. The smallest SUVs sell for higher prices than comparable cars, even cars built on the same platforms as the pricier SUVs. For example, for years, Ford sold a subcompact car called the Fiesta in the United States. When Ford released its subcompact Ecosport SUV, the brand's smallest utility, the car maker...
Yo, it's crazy. Yo, I'm just listening to all this, and I'm just really thinking about... I'm almost spacing out from the actual content of the video. Not because it's boring, but I'm just like... Yo, new car prices, wildly expensive. Used car prices, wildly expensive. Gas prices, wildly expensive. You want a house? Wildly expensive. The average mortgage shot up from $270, whatever it was, 2-3 years ago, to it's $400,000 for the average mortgage. Except that people really don't understand. One, you want to try to avoid adjustable rate mortgages. That's one. You want to also try to avoid a 30-year mortgage. You want to try to pay it off in 15 years. I watch a lot of Dave Ramsey, so I'm going off the Dave Ramsey plan. 15-year fixed rate mortgage is what you want to do. And you're going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars on the house. But let's say that you wanted to get a $400,000 house. the rule of thumb that I've learned to follow is that the total cost of your house shouldn't go over 2.5 times your yearly income. So if you make $50,000 a year, you technically don't want to go over $125,000. So, what are you gonna get for $125,000 now? A closet. I'm just thinking about like inflation is through the roof, and I'm thinking about all of this, and most people are gonna be like, wait, how are you supposed to get that done with student loans and all these other things? I'm with you. Like, there's no way you could actually possibly get all of this done, and it just reminds me of like learning through different documentaries about how back in the 50s and the 60s and parts of the 70s before inflation went to 12% again, with one income, right? And most of the times it was the father. One income, you could have 3 kids, a house, 2 cars, retire, and get a pension. None of that is true now. I'm done ranting.
Baker said U.S. average transaction prices for Ecosport were $4,500 higher than Ford would get from the Fiesta, even though the SUV and the car share the same basic platform.
So now you have consumers wanting SUVs, automakers making, almost for the first time, the cheapest SUVs you've ever seen, coalescing at the same moment, so that we saw consumers lose that sub $20,000 vehicle, but then very quickly have that SUV there for the first time. I mean, that subcompact space, which used to be somewhere in the range of about 2%, today is well over 8% and outsells both mid-car and compact car individually.
Consumers are willing to pay higher prices for SUVs primarily because they feel they are getting more. With their taller shape and more spacious cabins, SUVs are seen as more flexible. Many of them have slightly higher ground clearance, making them a bit better to drive off-road and thus use recreationally. But the SUV is not the only reason auto industry analysts think car prices are rising. Another key piece of the puzzle is technology.
Right.
Today's cars are packed with it, and customers want more of it when they drive off the lot. This includes safety features and driver assistance technology like cameras and blind spot monitoring systems. But it also includes robust infotainment systems compatible with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, voice-activated commands, and comforts such as heated and cooling seats. Consumers today, even young ones, don't seem to want to wait for those features.
There isn't as much appetite for a base level vehicle. Why? Lots of reasons. I think that if you look...
I mean, you got to think about it, right? Like, if you got somebody younger, anybody that's like 40 and younger, grew up with some level of technology. The younger the person, the more technology they grew up with. You don't want to jump in a car. You got all this technology in your house. You got all this technology on you. When you're looking at your phone, you got Apple Watches and all this other stuff. Then you get in your car, you know what I'm saying? And your car doesn't have all the features that it could possibly have. Like,
look at a general attitude of a younger buyer, whether you're looking at Gen Z, Gen Y, Millennial, in that space, there's more impatience and there's an expectation of being able to have all of the technology now and being able to have whatever it is that they want now. The expectations.
Y'all showing technology. What iPhone was that? That was like the 8, the 7?
I want Bluetooth in my car. I want Apple CarPlay, and God, there's no reason why I shouldn't have it. There is not a reason you shouldn't have it, but there is no reason you should not expect to pay for it. You've got a push on the younger side of the market of people being willing to pay for features that they want. And then on the flip side, in the older demographic, you've got people who are willing to pay for features because they feel like they've earned it.
The trouble is that consumers are paying more for these cars. Loan terms have grown in length. In 2020, the share of loans spanning 72 months or longer has grown considerably from where it was decades ago.
6-year loan on a car, bro. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Yo, that's insane.
And some consumers are increasingly faced with fewer options at the lower end, more likely to shell out more for a new car or turn to the used car market. The used market is massive, At their peak, new car sales reached about 17.5 million units in 2015, but the used car market is more than twice the size of that, at about 40 million units per year. The good news for buyers is that cars last longer than they used to, so buying used often does not come with the risks it might have in the past. And it means that consumers shelling out more than they ever have for a new car may at least get to hold on to it for a while longer.
It's crazy, bro. That's crazy. Yo, like, these car prices, the price of everything is like, it's insanity, and it's crazy because I did mention Dave Ramsey earlier, right? And and he would call it Dave Ramsey-ish, and I guess it's ish. I follow his plan to a T, but you know he doesn't believe in cryptocurrency, and then he doesn't believe in credit cards, and it's like, how can you get a loan on a mortgage if you don't have credit? So I just make sure I stay out of debt. Anything that I put on a credit card, and like I put like low fees just to be able to say I spend. Like I zero out all my cards every month. But I guess what I'm saying is that it's crazy that in a world where you have all the information for a person and a person like Dave Ramsey just giving you all this information on how to live your life, how to budget, how to get ahead, how to save, how to build wealth over the long term. For somebody that's in the middle class, you know, and it's crazy how middle class has been expanded to people that make like $150,000. So let's say you make 150 down to somebody that makes 30. And that's a wide range. It's like for me, for example, right? I feel like we're finally getting to a place where the information is out there. People are learning about trying to stay out of debt, trying to build their wealth up, and trying to do the things to have generational wealth, which includes buying property and buying stocks. But also, a lot of people live in suburban and rural areas, so they need to have vehicles. And it's like, man, like, I know so many people that are building up and they're just like, what am I gonna do about trying to get a house? Where in America can I get a house? A decent sized house. Like in 2017, I used to see 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom houses, 4,000 square feet. And I'm not just coming up with those fours. Like, I'm literally remembering a house I saw on Zillow. A house was like $180,000 in Pennsylvania. That same house now is like $575,000. And if you go back to what I said about, your income matching up with the type of house that you're trying to get, most people can't afford a $600,000 house realistically, unless it's 4 of y'all, right? Unless there's 4 adults making $100,000, making $75,000. That's not realistic. So, and then when it comes time to sell, you never really truly have equity because you have to split it up with the other people. Like even used car even new car prices. New cars used to be the average new car used to be like $30,000, $31,000. Now, like, it's like $40,000 for a car, $40,000 for a car. No way, I'm not doing that. Not unless this YouTube channel takes off. No way, and I'm paying cash still. Anyway, I'm done ranting. Let me know, what are gas prices like where you live? What are car prices where you live? What's the story about you trying to buy either a house or a car or paying off student loans and just things just being super insane in the markets right now? Let me know in the comment section. My name is Rain. Catch you on the flip side. RCP salute. Wait for it. Dab on them.